All right, so I like to keep my talks short and sweet, and I'm very happy with this audience turnout because I have debilitating stage anxiety, and this actually feels really cozy and nice. All right, so the name is a bit tricky, the Sisterhood of Traveling Threat Models. How many of you know what I'm referring to by the Sisterhood of Traveling something? No one. Okay, so I think, let me start with explaining. So it's actually a movie that was popular 10 years ago, and it was called The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and it's 4 girls that, you know, bonded over their experiences. It's a bit of coming-of-age movie, and they all share the pants, not at the same time, but they give the pants to each other as somebody goes traveling somewhere, goes through a period of their life. So that's why it's traveling pants, because the pants go in different situations and kind of evolve, and, you know, someone puts a little design here, somebody cuts them, and bear with me, I will explain how that's relatable later. Now let's go back. So I'm Alina, I am from Web3 Privacy Now and Women in Privacy. So it's a bit tricky to explain because it's basically one collective. So Web3 Privacy Now, how many of you have been at the event yesterday? I think almost everyone here. And it's a collective that promotes privacy, and it's open source, and it's donations run. You know how, like, my favorite way to describe it, you know how when you come to like an event and it's sponsored by something, and you just have the logos shilled in your face everywhere, and it feels so depersonalized, and it feels so, you know, in a selly way. So Web3 Privacy Now doesn't do that shit. So what we do is we partner with organizations that align with our ethos and actually, you know, do support the work that we do, but in the, you know, public goods way. Women in Privacy, on the other hand, is a task force on top of Web3 Privacy Now. So it's all the same collective, but let me explain it in these terms that I explained yesterday. We set up integrations on top of existing events to make events a bit more fun, to make events a bit more relatable and human. So we have Safe Events Initiative, which is a toolkit that we're developing to be distributed to community-run events. Because as we know, community organizers are working their asses off, and most of the time they don't have time to think about the little things while organizing an event. So you don't see a lot of awareness teams or, you know, safe corners or, you know, like report buttons, like QR code that you can scan on the wall. Bigger events usually integrate that, but for smaller hackathons, for smaller events, we want to create a toolkit that we can send them, like maybe a little workshop, maybe some suggestions on what to integrate in your event, and preferably someone from our team to kind of facilitate safe space for, you know, any kind of potential harassment, or if somebody is just simply overstimulated and they need like a moment to themselves, like with someone else, but without that someone asking 18,000 questions. And yeah, so it's a bit of integrating the human layer on top of this privacy collective. So I went over this, and so the traveling model of the threat model, I forgot the name of the presentation, sorry. But what is a threat model? What do we mean by that? So what are we protecting, and who are we protecting when we talk about privacy? And why are we protecting, and what are the tools that you're protecting with? Big questions, and when you think about privacy, do you want to scream out some, you know, associations that you get, like a word? When I say privacy, what's the first thing that comes to your head? Secrets? Okay. Anyone else? The what? Anonymous. Security? Encryption. Vaclav, what's the first thing that comes to your head when I say privacy? Encryption is not enough. That's many words, but passes. Anyone else? Okay, so the common model that everybody thinks of, and I love my collages, so I created a little one. Well, actually, this is not a collage yet, but it does have a little meme. So mainstream privacy threat models are usually, you know, people usually think of like the government spying on you, and there's a meme that's kind of, it's not a meme, but it's just like the screen from the show that I saw once on someone's Twitter, and I couldn't find it for the life of me, but it basically says, the first is like, oh, isn't it nice to feel like somebody's always watching over you? And it's like, oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, unfortunately, it's the government. And then when you also think of privacy, you might think of like Mr. Robot, so somebody hacking into a system, somebody doing, you know, maybe shady stuff. what privacy threat model should actually look like. So when you think about privacy, you should be thinking of activists that are going to protests that might be targeted if you're not in a very particularly nice country, or a country that's open to different kinds of protests, unless it's a fascist protest, which has happened in Rome before, and I do not support that. It's privacy for sex workers. It's privacy for journalists that are writing about a certain government and might be targeted by a certain government for the stuff that they write. And they can be in a particularly tricky situation, as we all know, especially political journalists. People traveling. So, for example, right now at the US borders, they are legally allowed to go through your phone. And for example, if you're a queer activist, or if you're trans, you might be denied entry to the United States, or you might have problems depending on which state, and so many different things like that that we normally wouldn't think of. Friends being kidnapped, as somebody here told me a story of their friend being kidnapped in, I think it was Latin America, but they were kidnapped by a cartel, and then the first thing that the cartel did was to destroy the phone, so all the tracking devices, tracking location would be off. And also simply for tracking your girlie's location on a night out, and you just want to make sure that they all get home safe. So this is the privacy that you would think of, that you should think of when you say privacy. And it's not necessarily, fancy tools. It's not necessarily, setting up nodes and servers in your apartment that make a lot of noise. It's not end-to-end encryption or zero-knowledge tools. It's not, completely hiding or going off the grid. And there's actually a giant book. I forgot the writer, but it's how to go off the grid completely. And it's so big because it's that complicated to do. And then using Monero, for example. Oh no, sorry, I thought the prophecy of my slides not working came true. What you should also think about when you think of privacy is simple tools. It's simple little things. So for example, downloading Signal instead of WhatsApp and using that. When Apple asks you if the app can track your activity, always be sure to press Ask App Not to Track. It's a simple button, but it does help. It's events. It's like little things to obfuscate yourself from security cameras, because as we know in the UK, there's a huge problem with facial recognition in surveillance cameras. They actually run a program in Cardiff, and not enough people are complaining about it, because honestly, it's not great, because surveillance could be about safety. So one of the things that you might think of is like, but how do we catch the criminals? But then when you also think of surveillance, you always need to think of two ways. So who has that surveillance, because it is power, and who is a criminal? Because the person, or the state that has the power will determine what is criminal and what is not. So if they want to fuck someone over, it doesn't matter. They will find a way because they establish the rules. So this is why obfuscation and cypherpunk methods, where you can fight this by yourself through code or through little collective things like that. A great example is actually masks. So before COVID, masks were not very popularized. They weren't even fabric masks. They were only medical masks, and I think I was wearing one a month before the whole global epidemic started, and everyone was freaking out. They were looking at me and stepping away from me, being like, Jesus fucking Christ, this woman is sick. And then now, if you wear a mask outside, nobody cares. They're like, oh, she probably has a flu. And the more normal we make things, the more acceptable they are. And in the end, it becomes collective care, because for you, you might not care that much. But for example, for me, I'm Russian, and I travel to Russia. And when I'm there as a privacy activist, I don't feel necessarily comfortable using WhatsApp. And as my coworkers agree to use Signal, it's really hard to onboard my non-Web3 friends, because they're like, why would I download Signal? It doesn't matter. And then if I'm there and I'm the only person on Signal, it's an echo chamber. But if all of my friends move there, it's not just the privacy activism, it's collective care. It's care for me, because for them it's just an app, but for me at that moment, it's my safety. And it goes not just for Signal versus Telegram, or Telegram as well, but in general. For example, normalizing things like something Women in Privacy did in Berlin is actually this installation with a couple of people in the picture where we created those masks so people can take anonymous profile pictures. So they don't have their eyes in it, but it looks cool. And something that like this should become normal, like maybe having photo booths at conferences that can allow you to obfuscate your face in a fun, creative way. And also something that most people don't know is that it's not very good to keep the same profile picture. Although I do that too, but it's not very good to keep the same profile picture for multiple different accounts at the same time, because AI can track you much better and kind of like put together your actions much faster. So the more diverse profile pictures you have, the better. And having things like that will actually encourage you rather than going on Pinterest and searching for a weird, obscure mushroom to put as your profile pic. And yeah, creating very simple privacy toolkits. So having, if my friends say, oh, okay, like WhatsApp introduced this AI feature and that freaked me out. What can I do about my privacy? I want to have a one-pager to send to them that will not include, oh, you should install the ZK knowledge proof app that doesn't even exist yet and it only runs on this specific testnet. I want actual, physical little things that I can do to make my life easier and, make my life a bit more private, not necessarily for me, but also for people that I interact with, because privacy is collective care. And please do it with style, because aesthetics are a big thing. And if something is aesthetic and easy to use, we all will fall for that. And then the bottom pictures are from Web3 Privacy Now events. So as you can see, a bit of obfuscation with film camera and hiding faces. Just community and talking about it. So for everyone here who was at the Web3 Privacy Now event yesterday, it was very chill, relaxed. It wasn't like sit down and now we're going to talk about this complicated cryptography that only one or two people in the audience will understand. No, it was chill. Like, let's talk about GDPR, but make it fun. And making privacy more of a collective, fun thing to do. So when you think of privacy, you might think of a nice party. You might think of good beer. You might think of good snacks. If you've ever been to Rome and tried the trapezzino, good snacks for sure. And yeah, so where do pants come in? So the movie that I mentioned before about traveling pants, I see it as a metaphor, and it might not be the perfect metaphor, but it was the first metaphor I could think of. And metaphor for privacy being collective, for privacy that's, a metaphor for the pants that united this friendship and gave them, a story, being like, oh, like I'm going through a breakup in this city and I just lost my job and everything's horrible. Oh, here, you should have the pants. And like, they wear them for a year and then somebody else is like, oh, but I'm running off with a stranger to Mallorca and it's gonna be like a crazy holiday for me. And then the pants also experience that and adapt to, different environments. And privacy should be the same. It should be collective. It should be shared in stories, shared in human language, not just end-to-end encryption. I mean, human language that preferably online would be end-to-end encrypted. But not just as a, very techy, very kind of gate-kept way that my friends wouldn't understand. Like, I think they would understand this talk, but some talks, they're very relevant for this specific conference, but I do want more events around to bring in more newcomers that wouldn't be scared of privacy just because it talks about, ZK AVMs too much. And privacy can adapt and remix. So for example, like activists put their phones in a freezer sometimes to avoid being tracked. And you can take that tip and then you can research it and then maybe, I don't know, find a better way to turn off your location services or just not bring your phone to the protest. And yeah, like you can get imaginative. So it's also a ritual in a way that, for example, in Web3 Privacy Now hackathon, we had balaclava merch, and it was a bit weird, to be honest, to see people walking around wearing a full-on balaclava, because that's not something you would see on the street. If you would see that on the street, you would be like, what is happening? But just normalizing it in style and making it cool and fun and associating these things with good things rather than, oh, that's a criminal who's hiding their face, could actually benefit the society as a whole. And yeah, more communities, not just protocols, because at this stage of Web3, I think we do have enough infrastructure. There should be more, and there are so many things being developed. But we should expand in a way that also invites non-technical people into this. So having a bit more ecosystem diversity, having a bit of people that care about tech and privacy, but also, having no Web3 background. So inviting doctors, inviting veterinarians, inviting anyone who, like truck drivers, to these kind of events and creating content also for them, because then we can actually get back and forth and feedback from, would they use this product? Does this seem crazy? Because if you've been bubbling like in this Web3 soup long enough, you lose touch. Like you lose sense of what is real world at some point. And I've seen that happen way too many times. So why Web3 privacy now and women in privacy? So what we do is we take the privacy out of the echo chamber. So we throw events in very random locations. We always go, very anti yachts in Dubai, and during big events like, for example, ECC last year or ECC this year, we host Occupy. So this year, for example, at ECC, we're going to have Web3 Privacy Now Occupy, which is where we're literally going to squat in the park. And then everybody, there's zero budget. Actually, maybe some budget for some beers, but then if somebody wants to sponsor, they can just provide beers for people. They can just bring some food. It's a collective thing, and people bring in their different talents and their different interests. So somebody will bring tarot cards, or somebody will bring, some artistic talent, maybe do some impersonation, and some people talk about privacy in a much chiller way. So no recordings, no mics, things like that. So actually fun and chill events for community, because it feels more like a party rather than a conference. And that's where privacy should go into, because we've had enough conferences, we need to expand into more partying. So yeah, I'm actually here to promote partying, but also ecosystem diversity, like I mentioned before, normalizing talking and showing up in privacy. So normalize being like, yeah, I'm on Signal. And I mean, yeah, a couple of years ago, drug dealers use Signal, and a lot of people found out about it through that. And I don't know those dealers at all, but it's just normalizing it away from criminal context and more into collective care. Like, we need to make it cool. We need to make it something that people want to wear. Like, fashion brands, they have so much bullshit, ugly stuff, but people want to buy it because they want to be part of this, persona. They want to be part of this brand. And we need to make privacy this cool, effervescent brand that, shows that you care for humanity, you care for your friends and yourself and the future. So yeah, aesthetics and narrative. Please, more aesthetic merch. We need more than just t-shirts. And then promoting public goods. So just like on a panel previously, something that will bring more attention into that entire, line of funding. So instead of donating to a charity, you can go for public goods, where it gets distributed between different channels and for projects. And Safe Events Initiative from Women in Privacy, like I mentioned before, integration on top of the events. And privacy should be collective care, because it's not about you anymore, it's about your friends. And I think that might be the best call to action that people can have, because most people are like, oh, but I have nothing to hide. But your friends might. And it might be, not something that is, actually bad. It could literally just be that they're queer and they're traveling to Turkey, or that, they're in an abusive relationship and they want to escape, but also don't want to be tracked on a, family plan of tracking locations. And, it's for, again, your trans friend that is traveling somewhere to a not so nice country. There's just so many ways that privacy can benefit someone that you know. So in the end, it's not about you anymore, it's collective. And that's about it. We have time to question.
Don't worry, Alina, we have time for plenty of questions. And thank you for reminding us that privacy is personal, just not technical.
Yes. Privacy should be less technical. So please, the devs, do something, make it more accessible.
We know everything that Europe is doing right now. They're trying to, we have the privacy laws, and then they're trying to make everything public on the site as well.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on the EU right now.
Don't worry, we can start on one question we got in. So who wins in the end of privacy or convenience?
It should be both. Privacy should be more convenient, because when we talk about convenience, this is something me and a friend of mine talked about this morning, actually, on a podcast, a little yapper podcast that we did. convenience can fuck you over in the long term. So, for example, with decentralized storage, you have storage on blockchain, which is a bit more or less convenient. But if you store all of your stuff on Dropbox, it can be also deleted, or you can lose access to it, and it's not convenient anymore. And also, it's if you're in a wrong state or wrong country at the wrong time, you might be flagged as a criminal person for doing something that would be totally normal in your country. And they would have access to all of your data. So or revoke your access to data. And in the end, convenience is a very tricky word, because I feel like when we talk about convenience as just people not knowing enough or not being well aware of what using, centralized apps and centralized systems can do to you, that it can fuck you over so easily and you don't even know it. And we're not gonna realize until it starts happening to a friend of a friend, and then to a friend, and then to you. So education is also at the core of it. So that's why I'm like, privacy versus convenience. No, it's privacy versus educated guess. Not the guess, but educated format. Yeah. Education.
It's like the Norwegian student that went to America now, had a meme on his phone, basically got out of the country now.
Yeah,
because of a meme.
Good that it was just out of the country. It could have been worse. It could have been to a different country like El Salvador.
Oh yeah, I heard a lot of that on there now. So, as we only have one up here, as love privacy, we have a guy in the back with the hands up. Oh.
Bring it on.
I like to keep human contact. I think it's important. So I'm asking the question like this. Thanks first for the presentation, presenting something that serious in such an accessible way. My question would be how we reconcile two echo chambers. One that is government, that sees crypto and blockchain as something shady and with huge potential criminal, with this echo chamber that speaks about privacy just in terms of protecting people from their identity or things which I completely agree with. I'm part of the two echo chambers as a blockchain crypto enthusiast, and as part of my job that concerns mainly engaging with governments. And before answering, I just want to underline that the security on the part, the fact that we are today here in this room without any risk of a terrorist attack, it's a fantastic thing that doesn't come just like that. It happens to live in a country where if I'm going out on the street walking, it's a very high risk to get kidnapped. So in Europe, I know that we take this kind of security things like for granted, but how do we reconcile two echo chambers to keep our security, but also to keep the privacy that we speak about in Web3?
Well, when there's an answer to that, let me know. It would be good. No, but I think there's two ways to go around it. Not two ways to go around it. There's two approaches to, finding this balance, because it requires not just a bunch of cypherpunks in the room, and it requires cypherpunks in this room to be together with the people from the government that actually have the ability to make changes. So there's two ways. You can, first one is education. So spreading education, and that is collective action. So actually there's not two ways, just one way. So collective action, education through events, education through, posting memes about privacy, about normalizing these kind of things, so that the government also picks up. Because when we talk about the government, we feel like, especially in the cypherpunk echo chamber, it feels like this one big monster or like one big bad thing. But in reality, they're also people, and they also have no idea what the fuck we're doing. Like we're all lost in this space, and actually just on the planet floating through space. But getting through to them through regulation amendments, through organizing events, through maybe hosting educative panels for them, and providing this kind of education that they don't have because they're not boiling in the same soup as us. And also educating the public. But if you think about it, like a person who's making the key decision, they're just like us. They're probably scrolling through Instagram as well, like reels, while either on the toilet or before going to sleep. So if they start seeing a bit more privacy content, if they start seeing a bit more even like fashion content on balaclavas or face obfuscation, it might become more normal to them subconsciously that people want privacy, and they will maybe remember and learn that privacy is a human right. And in the last century, the governments have been going a little too far to sacrifice privacy for security. But as we all know, a lot of it is not really in the name of security. A lot of it is decided by the government, what they consider security or not. And yeah, we're just, privacy is power. And we shouldn't give out all the power to the government, but we also should together find this middle ground that will be there. I hope this answers the questions, because yeah, when you find out the answer to this, the balance, please call me.
Yeah, and I saw, meanwhile, there came a very enthusiastic consensus builder in. How about ChatGPT and similar? Do you worry about the data shared there? It seems inevitable.
It's not inevitable, it's just education, because there's private local LLMs that you can run on your laptop. I'm yet to find an app that will be on seamless UX design on my phone that I can use. But there are alternatives. They're just usually open source, open, public goods, because it's not very profitable, because the way that OpenAI, for example, profits is by selling your data. And it fucks you over easily because, for example, insurance companies can buy it and then, target you specifically or increase rates for you. And that's just a very chill and easy example of how your data might be misused with ChatGPT. But that's a profitable model. The good products don't have that profitable model. So they're not very easily funded. So you're not going to get a perfect app on your phone, but what you can do is use the shitty apps and give them users, give them traffic. When you see a bug, report it. Help this project yourself as well. And I know that it might be a bit inconvenient, but it's also going to be good for, humanity and your privacy and your friends' privacy.